So a little bit more about the courts. It brings up another issue: the juice that a changeling needs to do changeling things, and we'll get into that a little bit um, later. Um, Changelings live basically; they're like the sponges that absorb people's emotions, basically. In order to do that, you have to put yourself into the situation. So, for example, a winter court, a winter courtier goes to a funeral of somebody he doesn't know and pretends to be the friend of one of the deceased. He sits there and he talks to the widow, and he recollects he makes up a whole entire very sad story and gets an emotional response from the people there. He and depending on and the interesting thing about this game, there's not one dice roll for this. So whatever you use, and it could be a social roll, like that case, is what you get. And so you roll, and whatever successes you get, that's the enough glamour you get. So all of these, so everything of the changelings, a changeling does, contracts, that's like the superpowers that they have, and all these other little things cost glamour. And in that way, unlike like vampires and all the other supernaturals of this changelings are really the most benign. Really, I mean, you can do it in not a very benign way. You could beat somebody up and create wrath, but I think though, and this is another thing I really want to drive home about in this game when I run it, is you can say, "Oh, this is such a heavy game. I just don't know if I can, play this game. I'm a slave. I'm an escaped slave, or whatever." But I have seen this game play, and there wasn't a moment that people weren't laughing. I mean, it was just all funny. And I've seen it played the other way, where it was all really scary, and I think really the best games are the ones that are kind of even out. So I strongly suggest you pick the type of character you want to play. If you want to play a carefree character, play one, and it kind of works itself out. Unlike in Dungeons and Dragons that we've been playing, you're pretty much whatever you choose. You're a cleric, you're a cleric. You're a fighter, you're a fighter. You might have different alignments, but it's all pretty much the same, really. In the end, you're either going to get along with your group or you're not. That this game is very different. Um, I I touch on the fetch. I guess what I really need to touch on in this part is, what are you playing? Well, when you came back from Arcadia, you're this thing. You're now part Fae, and you can look very. The only stipulation in this game is that you must be humanoid. There's no centaurs or mermaids with fishtails. You can't do that. You need 2 legs, 2 arms, a head. Um, but you can be very creative from that. And that's the beauty of this game, is that you can play whatever concept you want within the paradigm of being a changeling. I know I'm just skipping all kinds of stuff. I'm sorry. So I want you to keep that in mind. Let's go on now to what you're playing. Um, there are things. Each character will have a seeming. This is I don't want to call it a race, but this was kind of like a category that was created of you. What position did you hold in Arcadia? So they are Beast, um, Darkling, Ferris, Ogre, and Wizen. And I'll go through them real quick. Beasts, you were some kind of animal or animalistic. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a real animal, it could be a mythical creature too. Um, and of course, that entails a whole bunch of things. Were you a pet? Were you just a wild creature? Yada yada. Darkling. Very hard to discern. A darkling would be Maleficent from Disney Sleeping Beauty. She would be a darkling. Um, then you have the Ferris. Those are the elves and bright creatures of light and the good-looking ones. Then you have the ogres. They are the brutish ones, whether they're good or evil. They're brutish and big and tough and fighting types. And I'm trying to think like trolls or things like that would be an ogre. Or like a green hag concept. Then you have the wizen. These are the workers. What comes right to my mind is Rumpelstiltskin. So you have those, you have the seemings, and then you have a very narrow definition called the kith. And so, like, you could be a Ferris muse, and so you were a beautiful creature, whatever it was, however you describe yourself, and what function you were a muse, MUSE. You help create creativity, and that is what your power. The game mechanic is with the spinning of one glamour point, you give a mortal +3 on a dice roll to create something. So that's kind of the idea. And of course, all these kiths are all kinds of concepts that lead to all kinds of storylines. Then you must pick your court. So you pick seeming, kith, court. And I don't want to go too far into it, but in the world darkness, you also pick a virtue and a vice. Like I said, you have weird, which is kind of like the energy, fairy energy. But you also have willpower, which is like what humans have, willpower. And the way to regain willpower is by fulfilling your virtue and vice. If I fulfill my vice to the detriment of you, but to fulfill my desires, I get 1 willpower point back. But I can get 1 willpower point back all game long. I just keep fulfilling my vice. But if I fulfill my virtue to the detriment of myself, like if I gave you the last dollar I had, and it really hurts me to give you that dollar, but I gave it to you because you needed it more, I regain all my willpower back. But I can only do that once per game session. So, again, everything about this game just lends itself to roleplay. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, what a changeling can do. Changelings have things called contracts. These are kind of like magical fairy spells, I would think you'd call them. And they can do all kinds of things. Some of them are connected to your court. Some of them are connected to your seeming. And beyond that, changelings are able to enter and change dreams. They're able to enter into the hedge by spending a point of glamour and going through a doorway or anything that looks like an entryway from one place to another. They are able to do something called tail crafting, where you kind of nudge reality in one direction or another. Turn left instead of right. Stray off the path. Third time's the charm. Things of that nature. I don't really know. I wish I could. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to post these up, and if you have questions as we go along, again, in my group, We have a little ways. We're right now we're doing Swords and Wizardry, and we're doing Temple Elemental Evil, and we're kind of they got a little ways to go, but not far. I'm kind of stepping up this. Changeling's going to happen, or at least if I show up, I'll be doing one. But please ask questions away. You can post them here. You can post them on Google Plus. I do have a community for this game. It is called City of Night. And I guess you can look it up through Google Plus through gaming communities. In fact, I'll try and do a link here. This is going to be a YouTube thing. So, I'm going to stop there. I think that's really talking your head off about something. Again, if there's any questions, feel free to ask.